Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to what matters in the research. Today, we are tackling something I think pretty much everyone struggles with at some point, learning a language as an adult. You know the feeling, right? You've studied for ages, you can probably ace a grammar test, but then you try to actually speak and suddenly your brain just freezes. The words won't come out. It's incredibly frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. It's that moment where all the rules you memorize seem, well, completely useless. You just want to open your mouth and have it flow automatically. Forget the rules. But here's the kicker, our sources point out. Think about it. Any kid can speak the language their parents speak perfectly, fluently. So maybe the language itself isn't the impossibly complex thing we make it out to be. Maybe. Maybe it's the way we try to learn it later on.
Exactly. And that difference, knowing about a language versus actually being able to use it fluently, that's our mission today. We're digging into this fundamental split that researchers talk about. We've looked at the big theories on language acquisition, memory, how our adult brains handle this stuff, to really understand how fluency is actually built, not just theoretical knowledge.
Right. So let's dive in. The core idea from the sources is this. There are basically two separate ways our brains develop language skills, and they're really different. The first one, honestly the powerhouse, is acquisition.
Acquisition. Okay, so this is the fluency engine, you're saying.
That's
And it's subconscious.
totally subconscious. Acquisition is like, well, it's how kids pick up their first language. You're not sitting there analyzing grammar. You're just using the language to communicate, to understand, to interact. And the result is what they call acquired competence. It's more of a feel for what's right. You know a sentence sounds correct or sounds wrong instinctively. You probably can't explain the rule, but you just know.
Ah, okay. So that gut feeling, that little internal voice that says, yeah, that sounds right, or nope, that's weird. That's the acquisition system working. But then there's the other way, the one most of us know from school, learning.
Right. Learning is the conscious bit, the deliberate study. Memorizing verb charts, learning about noun cases, reciting rules. You know this information consciously. You can explain the third conditional, maybe, but, and this is key, this learned knowledge is separate. It's not the system that produces natural, spontaneous speech.
Okay, hold on. So if the real fluent speaking comes from that subconscious acquisition thing, then what's the point of all the grammar lessons, the textbooks, the conscious effort?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it leads us straight to what the researchers call the monitor hypothesis.
The monitor, right. I remember reading about this. It's like an editor inside your head.
Exactly. That conscious knowledge, the learned stuff, it doesn't actually start the conversation. It can only act as a monitor or an editor. It basically checks the output of your acquired system. It can tweak things, polish them, maybe before you speak, or sometimes even after when you catch your own mistake.
Okay, but it sounds like, well, it sounds kind of limited.
It's very limited. Think of it like proofreading, not writing the novel. And the really frustrating part, this editor basically clocks off under pressure. For you to successfully use your conscious rules, your monitor, 3 really strict conditions have to be met all at once.
Okay, what are they?
Condition 1, time. You need enough time to actually think about the rule and apply it. In a normal, flowing conversation, forget it. There's just no time. Think about trying to argue with a taxi driver or order complicated food quickly. Your conscious brain just freezes.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. No time. What's number 2?
Number 2, focus on form. You have to be actively thinking about how you're saying something, about being grammatically correct. The second you get caught up in the message, what you actually want to communicate, the monitor tends to switch off. You prioritize meaning over grammar.
Makes sense. You're trying to connect, not conjugate. And the third?
Condition 3, rule knowability. The rule itself has to be simple enough, clear enough for you to actually grab it and use it effectively on the fly. And the sources give a great example. English articles. Never versus I. Seems simple, right? But the actual usage is incredibly complex, semantically. Trying to consciously apply rules for that in real time. Almost impossible for most situations.
So time, focus, and simplicity. You need all 3.
All 3. And the evidence backs this up. Even when people do have time, like when they're writing an essay, the researchers found the impact of conscious rule checking is often, quote, surprisingly light. It really takes something like a specific, maybe low-pressure grammar quiz to get people heavily using that monitor. The bottom line is, if you're consciously thinking about grammar rules while trying to speak, you're probably not speaking fluently.
Okay, so this paints a picture. The monitor is weak, fails under pressure. The real engine is the subconscious acquisition system. So How do we fuel that engine? How do we feed the acquisition machine?
Right. And the answer, according to the research, is overwhelmingly comprehensible input. That's the core of the input hypothesis.
Comprehensible input, meaning
Yeah.
input we can understand.
Basically, yes. Acquisition happens when you get input reading or listening that you can mostly understand, but that's just a tiny bit beyond your current level. Sometimes it's called I plus one. A is your current level, and plus one is that next little step up.
Like the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
Not too easy, not too hard.
Exactly. Just right. And the really important finding here is that improvement comes from getting tons of this understandable input. It does not primarily come from being forced to speak or being constantly corrected on your output. This actually explains the silent period you sometimes see in language learners. They're taking in input, acquiring, and they'll start speaking when they feel ready, when their acquired system is strong enough.
Okay, so if input is king, what makes input good input? What should we be looking for?
Good question. First and foremost, comprehensibility. The number one job of any learning material or interaction is to help you understand the message.
How is that achieved?
Well, sometimes through simplifying the language itself, think teacher talk, or how people sometimes speak more slowly and clearly to foreigners, but also, crucially, through non-linguistic clues, context. Visuals, gestures, facial expressions. This is why watching TV shows or movies in the language can be so powerful. You have all that extra information helping you figure out what's going on, even if you don't know every word.
Right, the pictures help tell the story. Okay, comprehensibility first. What else?
Second, quantity. You need a lot of it. Massive amounts. Think about this statistic from the sources. By age 20, native English speakers typically know somewhere between 15,000 and 35,000 word families. Where did they learn all that? Mostly not from vocabulary lists. They learned it from vast amounts of reading, especially reading for pleasure. We need to replicate that volume with our target language.
Well, that's a huge number. Okay, massive quantity. And third,
The input has to be relevant and compelling. It needs to be interesting to you. If you're bored or you don't care about the topic, your brain basically tunes out. It won't acquire effectively. It's actually noted that sometimes those specially edited textbooks can be harder or more frustrating than just reading, say, a real French newspaper article written for native speakers.
wait, harder, how?
Because the textbook writers might be artificially stuffing the text with specific grammar points they want to teach, making it dense and unnatural, whereas the real article, even if complex, flows naturally and might be about something you actually find interesting. You want to understand it. You need input you genuinely connect with.
Okay, so understandable, lots of it, and interesting. That's the fuel. But you mentioned something can block the fuel. The effective filter.
Yes, the affective filter. This is a really important psychological piece. Think of it as a kind of emotional shield or barrier in your mind. It goes up when you feel anxious, stressed, embarrassed, maybe unmotivated, or just generally have a bad attitude towards the language or the learning situation.
Okay. I think I know this feeling. I remember trying to order coffee in Italy once. Totally messed up the verb. The barista looked annoyed. I just froze.
Yeah.
Like my brain shut down. I couldn't understand the next thing he said, even though it was probably simple. Was that the filter going up?
That sounds exactly like it. That spike of anxiety, the fear of making a mistake, of looking stupid, that raises the filter. And here's the critical part. If your affective filter is high, even if the input you're getting is perfectly comprehensible, I plus one, it won't get through effectively. It won't reach the part of your brain that does the subconscious acquisition. Your brain is too busy defending itself, feeling stressed or embarrassed to actually process the language properly.
Wow. So feeling bad literally stops you from learning, even if the material's good.
Pretty much. Which means a huge part of successful language development is finding ways to lower that filter. This could mean things like allowing yourself that silent period we talked about, taking the pressure off having to speak perfectly right away.
Right.
Or finding learning environments like maybe language exchange meetups or immersion settings where mistakes are okay, where you don't feel judged, places where that fear of ridicule is minimized.
So creating a low anxiety space is key.
Absolutely. The ideal state really is when you get so absorbed in the communication, in the meaning, in connecting with someone, that you actually kind of forget you're using a foreign language. That's when the filter is lowest and acquisition happens best.
Okay, this is all making a lot of sense. So let's pull it together. For someone listening right now wanting to get fluent, how do we apply all this? What are the practical steps?
All right, let's get practical. First big one, rebalance your effort. If you're spending, say, 50% of your time on grammar drills and flashcards, stop. The sources suggest deliberate learning, grammar study. Memorization should probably only be about 25% of your time max. The other 75%, That needs to be focused on communicative activities driven by input. Reading stuff you enjoy, listening to podcasts, watching videos, maybe conversations focused on understanding. Feed the acquisition engine.
7525. Input over explicit study. That's a big shift for many people. Okay, what else? Vocabulary seems crucial for understanding input.
Definitely. For vocabulary, learn words in context, not just isolated lists. If you do use flashcards, try using images. Like, search Google Images for the word. Connect the foreign word directly to a picture, a concept. This helps bypass translating through your native language and makes the words stickier, more memorable, less likely to be screened out by that filter, making foreign words feel, well, forgettable.
Use images, got it.
Yeah.
What about memorizing things, like those key vocabulary words?
Don't just review passively. Use spaced repetition systems, SRS. Tools like Anki, Memrise, there are others. These systems are clever. They show you the word or phrase right before you're likely to forget it. This forces you to practice retrieval, pulling the information out of your brain. It feels harder than just looking at the answer, but that effortful recall is what really locks it into long-term memory, into your acquired system.
Okay, SRS for recall practice. Makes sense. Now, what about actually speaking or writing? Output. You said it's not the main driver, but it must have a role.
It does have a role, mainly in helping you notice gaps and getting feedback. The key here is embrace making errors. Don't be afraid of them. Use platforms, maybe like italki or Tandem. Find language partners, get corrections from native speakers. When you try to say something, mess it up, and someone corrects you based on your specific mistake, that correction becomes incredibly memorable, way more than a generic rule in a book.
Because it's personal, it's tied to your attempt.
Exactly. There's often a little emotional tag, maybe slight embarrassment, maybe just annoyance at yourself that makes the correct form really stand out. Writing helps too. Try writing emails, journal entries, whatever. Making mistakes in writing helps you see what you're missing, what patterns you haven't acquired yet. It guides your future input focus.
This all seems to loop back to lowering that effective filter again. Being okay with imperfection.
It really does. There's this interesting observation, sometimes made, that maybe, say, Americans are often more willing to just jump in and speak a language badly just to communicate, whereas perhaps some Europeans might feel they need near perfection before they claim any fluency. That fear, that inhibition, is the filter in action. It holds people back.
But being understood, even imperfectly, is better than silence.
Absolutely. As one famous polyglot, Katolam, supposedly said, languages are the only thing worth knowing, even poorly. A broken sentence that gets you the right train ticket or makes a small connection is infinitely more valuable than perfect grammar kept silent in your head. Build those bridges, even if they're a bit wobbly at first.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the main path to real usable fluency seems clear.
Yeah, the bottom line is, prioritize getting huge amounts of compelling, understandable input. Do it in situations where you feel relaxed and motivated, not anxious. Your main job is to constantly feed that subconscious acquisition machine. That's what builds fluency.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with today. Think about that affective filter, that barrier built by inhibition, by the fear of mistakes. Now think about your day. How many little pockets of wasted time are there? 5 seconds waiting for a web page, 10 seconds in an elevator, maybe 30 seconds standing in line.
Those little hidden moments.
Exactly. So the challenge is, what's one tiny hidden moment you can grab today? Just one for some super low stakes input. Maybe glancing at a news headline in your target language on your phone. And maybe more importantly, what's one small step you can take this week to give yourself permission to just speak badly? To try, even if it's not perfect, just to communicate something and keep that momentum going.
Because really, the moment you stop letting the fear of mistakes paralyze you, that's the moment you truly start acquiring the language.
That's the end of this deep dive. We really hope this look at acquisition versus learning helps you refocus your efforts and find a faster path to fluency. Catch you next time.